Welcome. This is the DNX Show. Thanks for joining us. We're here every Thursday, noon Pacific. That's fucking wrong. Excuse my language. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got a new format. We go 90 minutes now. Okay. We used to go 90 minutes. We used to go, 120 minutes. But we're going to really pack things in. 90 minutes is plenty. And this month, there's two hosts of the show. My name is Todd Ryan. My co-host normally is Josh Reason, but Josh is on holiday for the month of July 2026. Every summer he goes to the UK. He's a Brit, but he lives here in Jacksonville, Florida, and goes back and visits family, and usually posts some beautiful pictures online of some farms in the English countryside. So, and he said, keep doing this thing. I'll drop in if I can, and then I'll see you when I get back. So, of course, we're going to keep it rolling. My co-host for the month of July is Summit out of Africa. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Out of India. I say, we know it's Mumbai, but Summit, before you got here, I said I call it Bombay because of Dr. Bombay, Bernard Fox on Bewitched back in the day. But I just love that name, Bombay. And but it's Mumbai. All right, well, let me say hello to my co-host, Summit. How's everything going today?
All good. It's pouring here. The monsoons are here in Bombay, and it used to be Bombay for a long time, like right through school, college, and everything. Then one fine day they got up and changed the name, but whatever.
Yeah.
Most of the South Bombay crowd, the Sobo crowd as we call it, they still call it Bombay because Somu sounds really bad. So South Mumbai doesn't really work. So
And
they say Sobo.
and I know, but I want you to say it for the crowd. What state is Mumbai in?
Mumbai is in Maharashtra. It's the capital of Maharashtra. We're on the west coast of India, midway around the country.
And how many states are in India? Or they call them states or provinces? What do they call them there?
States about don't quote me on this, but I think 28 states and seven union territories, something like that.
Geez, if you were in the U.S. and somebody said how many states are you? I don't know, 47 or
We
you
have
know there was
four new
50.
states
Okay.
in the last 10, 15 years. So sometimes, and plus when I studied them, they were like 21 states back in the 80s. So I don't keep track. But yeah, 28 states, I think sounds about right.
Yeah, Ragu, how many
And
provinces
union
are in Canada?
territories.
Sorry, I saw Ragu.
Todd, listen, right off the bat, right? You choose the wrong guy. If you want to know about India, you got to choose me to be your co-host. I could give you all these beautiful answers, which Sumit cannot give. So he's only good for I can. This guy's only good for domains. This guy's only good for marketing. So please come to the point and just talk about your domain business and get out of here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so no, I was say good news for me. That's what the show's about: domain investing, not about India. So, fuck,
Exactly.
it's
So
gonna
I don't
work
know
out.
where you're coming from.
It's
If you
gonna
want
work
to
out.
ask this kind of
No,
questions, you ask me. You ask me.
it's and I'm not really into it much, but it's called small talk. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, and
Hey, listen,
ask
man,
you.
you're
No, I'm
talking to
glad
the
I got you.
Bollywood
I
guy
got you
here.
sitting right there. Any India questions the rest of the day? I'm gonna ask you. Let me
Yeah.
mark all those off in my
Yes, yes, please.
fucking
I'm a
outline here.
Bollywood guy. Even though I'm not from Mumbai or Bombay, I love Bombay, but I'm in Canada. But my soul and my heart is in Bombay or Mumbai. And I'm big in there, man. You better go to India and just say my name, and you'll be get everything VIP service.
Yeah, it's like John Smith and Raghu Sharma. I can't imagine how many Raghu Sharmas there. Raghu Sharma. They're like, yeah, I know. Unbelievable. That name is so common. I can't even believe it. Um, okay, so yeah, we got a big outline today. DNXShow.com. You can see the outline. Simon, I put there's some of the topics we're going to cover are on there, but there's so much more. And one thing I wanted to, really I was going to talk on later, but might as well run people out of the room right now, is okay, so I see, we know the Costello brothers they put smoothie, this is about as big as marketing gets for Doma, okay? They've been trying to, that's one of the things that you want is you want them to help market your name when you put it on their protocol. Basically, when you fractionalize it, when you first tokenize it, then you fractionalize it. But Smoothie just didn't seem to me like the greatest fit. And what I mean is, it's Smoothie. So you're a Web3 person or whatever you are, you're a meme coin person, and you're like, yeah, fractionalizing domain names. I want something that, you know, I can understand why we'd fractionalize it, something that's tech, AI, something that's, I don't know, really innovative. And then Smoothie. Sound like, so that's one of your premium names that you didn't mind to, send out there in the paintball fucking tournament and let people shoot at it with whatever. But okay, so I guess Samad, I wanted to ask you, and we'll take a step back. Is so you've put a couple names. How many names have you have on Doma? How many of them have? And I don't care if everybody understands this. I do. How many have? Dang, I forget the word. Graduated or met the threshold. But how many do you have on Doma right now?
So the way the process works is you have to move the names to Interstellar, which is their registrar. And to do that, you need to shortlist names from your portfolio, obviously. So I had a discussion with the guy who's handling my stuff, and we picked up 16 names. Actually, he picked up 27 names, but 11 of those are at Atom. And I didn't want to get into the whole delete from Atom kind of BS. So 16 names were moved to Interstellar, out of which 12 were launched, and 4 have bonded or graduated or whatever you want to call it. That's the whole game. And of course, I didn't up the pricing for the Web3 crowd. I just whatever my standard Afnic pricing, I gave them the same pricing, and we followed through on that on Doma. So 4 names, 3 are .coms, 1 is an XYZ, curates.xyz. That's 2388 retail.
Curates.
I made $32.
I'm going to follow along. I want to go online.
Thinking of retiring.
Good job. I want to check it out. So I want to see the lander. Curates.xyz.
Yep.
And this is, no, thanks for clearing it up. So you transfer your name to Interstellar, which is the registrar that they use. I don't know what relationship. They own a piece of it or none of it or just a relationship.
They own it, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so because I know they were using with nicknames Andre over there, but that's his. Okay. So
but it makes sense, right? If you're going to fractionalize something, you want complete control over that particular asset.
Yeah. So curates, the reason I wanted to take a look at it. So this one graduated, bonded.
Yeah.
Oh boy, did that hit the home free. Anyway, so from what I was understanding and listening to, so I'm watching on X and I see, John Berryhill was, communicating with, well, I'm sure it was David Costello. And Michael's like, fuck it, David, you handle this, I'm sure. Anyway, about, hey, they can do these subdomains on there and they'll put dirty words in front of your subdomain name and just ruin it. And then this was, part of the conversation and David Costello said, no, we've got an agreement with them that we first right of refusal or something. Basically, we can decide if we don't want, this subdomain. And okay, makes sense. And then John said, yeah, well, I don't know why everybody doesn't have that option because I see some subdomains that are just filthy. Anyway, so
no, everybody has the option. I didn't want to get into the whole conversation because I'm doing a podcast on the 15th, I think.
Okay.
About Doma.
Okay.
With somebody, and I'm going to talk about it at length.
Okay.
There are a lot of pluses and minuses, but you remember back in the day when we were on Clubhouse, we used to talk about domains being the original NFTs. And the whole reason people invested in the Paradise Trippies was because of paradise.com, as far as I remember. Of course, they later on said that, it's not part of the NFT project. But that idea kind of stuck that if the domain is the asset, as like say instead of Board 8 Yacht Club, you have smoothies.com. Now, when BAYC launched, I think they were a few $100, maybe $500-600 each into 10,000. So whatever that works out to, $6 million. But I think it was less than that. But so Smoothies is the same thing. Smoothies has a million shares, a million tokens, and depending on how much, what percentage they are offering up. Suppose it's 20%. So 20% of Smoothies is equal to a million tokens. If it's $3.5 million, then whatever price you buy, the logic being that when they sell Smoothies for 3.5 million, the person who invests at say a lower price point, say at 350,000, because their FTV is their FTV on the thing is 350,000. So suppose you invest at 350,000, you make 10x when the domain sells. The downside is we know how liquid domains are, so they might never sell. The upside is if it does do well, you do well as well. And it's a new thing, right? You got to. In my case, I've risked about 6 grand. Put all those 16 domains which I've put. My purchase price is 6 grand. I'm letting this out there, even though I know it's probably not a good idea. But there you are. And that's my risk. Worst case, it all goes to shit. I lose those 16 domains. That's okay.
Yeah, there's
But I
some.
don't think that'll happen because these guys are sorted.
Well, how do you lose the name? First of all, I was going to say it's Smoothie, no S. And when you're a domain person, a domainer, domain investor, domain person, you can bullshit all you want, but when someone constantly gets your name wrong, adds an S or says it's wrong, it just drives you crazy. So I know they could act like, oh no, it's no big deal, it's just smoothie. Yeah, you see, but people are smoothies. He's already more naturally, I guess, with the S, smoothie. Yeah, one smoothie. No, I'm here with my kids. They all need motherfucking smoothies. Excuse my language. Why do I do that? Okay, so anyway, I do see Smoothie 3.5 million. That's what I was going to ask you about. So apparently they I saw David Costello say that he has been working closely with Doma and they're very open to, and I of course I know the guys, but I would say very open to making changes to this dashboard. If you go to smoothie.com, I guess basically they just wanted to call it a buy it now price. So we're going to really just understand this and then move on. And that is there's two prices, but really the buy it now price we're going to set to the side. Summit, I know you have buy it now prices. I saw curates.xyz, the domain price, $2,412. Okay. So is Curates similar to Smoothie in that the buy-in price was say 10% of that? Was your buy-in price for
So all
Curate?
my domains, I'm selling 20% of the domain.
Okay,
I
but
don't know
still,
what
I
the scene is
understand. So,
with
but still,
Smoothie.
what's the buy-in price? I mean, so you're selling 20%. I got that, but still, what's the valuation when people are buying in? They're not buying in at two
Yeah.
thousand
So
four twelve.
no, I'm not really clear on this. So I don't even know when it bonds. Suppose the you want me to pull up numbers, it's pointless actually, because I really don't understand it 100%. I'm just going with the flow and seeing where it goes.
Because
Um,
I'm
with the
guessing.
four
Yeah, go ahead.
with the four that have bonded, I've made about 600 and some odd dollars. And every few days they give me $2 on this domain and $4 on that domain and $1.30 on curates. So that's something that's happening on a weekly basis. I get more money. I really don't know how it works.
I'm
In the
get.
way I thought about how it would work is that if a domain is 2388 and it bonds, that means 20%. So 20% would be about $400, right? So I'd get about, assuming that it's a thing, I would get about, because they pay you in two tranches, one now, one after 12 months. So out of 400, I should have got about 100 and something upfront and maybe a 100 and something, which by the way, if you go to their website and check out the calculator they have under launch, the numbers that it gives you are totally off the charts. They got no foundation in reality. This is the stuff that JB is calling out. JB is not wrong, but He's old school, right? He's like, you should own 100% of your domain. Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at it. I said this in Ish's room the other day that I'm looking at it as distribution. The other names I have are joyrightcoin.com, realityapps.com, and one more. But these are all these Web3, crypto, tech kind of names. There's a lot of money in crypto. Hopefully, one of those guys will look at it and say, "Buy, okay, it's not bad. Let me spend like 5 ETH and pick up the domain." 5 ETH for a lot of these guys is pocket change
Here's
because they're
how it would
sitting on a
make
limited
sense
account.
to me, and then I'll go to Eric. But basically, we all understand. So we're domain investors. We want to buy wholesale. We want to sell retail. So when someone comes along, you want to say, "Hey, my, the wholesale price of this name is $1,000," and everybody looks around like we all agree. Okay, big friggin' deal. It's $1,000. That's the wholesale price. It's a pretty good name. Okay, the wholesale price is $1,000. On an expired auction, maybe it could go for two or three. When you're trying to sell it real fast, maybe you can only sell it for 300 or 400. But we're agreeing that we have a domain here. The wholesale price is $1,000. Okay, then we all agree we're going to try to retail this name for $15,000. So even more than 10 times. We buying it for 1,000, but we think this is a great name. And I think many of us have been in similar situation to this. We bought wholesale a name for a certain amount, whether it's four figures, three figures, four figures, because I'm talking about those range, and then you might have bought it for $1,000 or two and think this is worth 25,000. But we're going to go wholesale price is 1,000. We're going to retail it for 15,000. All right. So then when you put it on chain, what I'm saying is, okay, so the wholesale price is 1,000. That's what the investors want to buy in at. So if you're selling 20% of it at $1,000 valuation, that means you're only selling off $200 worth of this thing. So when the $200 comes in, okay, that can be yours. That it's $200 of of the 20% of the wholesale price. And then I understand that if there's a lot of buying pressure, there's a lot of interest at that wholesale price. That's when a bonding curve should go, okay, you know what? A lot of people wanted this at $1,000 wholesale. Maybe we should have this at 1,500 or 2,000 wholesale. So the open market would push that price up. So now it's like, look, the initial people were buying it at $1,000 valuation. Now it's at $1,500 valuation, maybe even 2,000 valuation, 2,500. So I can understand how once it's in the open market and basically the public gets involved, buyers, then if there's a lot of buying pressure, that could move up the wholesale price. But still, there is a wholesale price. Okay, and then if the name eventually sells at that retail price, you're just pro rata, whatever you want to, how you call it, is you're going to divide it up amongst the token holders. Whatever you own 2% of this thing, you're going to get 2% of that price. So that's the simplest way to understand it, but somehow it goes off track a little bit with all their numbers in the dashboard, and then it's not, then it's all of a sudden not easy to understand. We're going to talk about this for a second. Eric, thanks for joining us. What comment or question did you have?
Yeah, I think what you just said, like the last minute or two, is really what the expectation should be, right? It's just like about a month ago, I did myself to go check it out, and exactly that. The information is not very clear. First of all, they never say anywhere, at least a month ago, that there's 1,000,000 tokens, right? Everyone knows that apparently, but like for somebody who's going in for the first time, that's not clear. And then I thought the 1,000,000 tokens would represent 100% of the domain, right? And that, let's say if you put 20% of it available for people to buy into, then that would be 200,000, tokens or whatever, shares or whatever you want to call it, that's made available. Because now it's like, okay, well, if it's only 20%, but 1,000,000 tokens represents the 20%, it's like, well, you're not like, it's in a different domain, it's 25%, another one is 30%. It's like, it's okay. The math is just a little bit more convoluted. I think all that stuff aside, I think the real issue is going to be people coming in with realistic wholesale prices, right? And conversely, I think what might happen at the start, actually what will definitely happen at the start, is that you'll get the FOMO from outsiders like you had with NFTs and the blockchain domains. People will come in and buy in at higher prices than the actual wholesale value, right? And that will bring a flood of more people putting in domains for availability. And then, after 6 months to a year, we'll see where the real demand is, right? Those initial people who bought into it, who didn't really understand the real true wholesale value of domains, but bought it anyways because they thought it was the next hot thing, that will artificially inflate, I think, the initial wave of offerings. But if you're going to put domains up, do it now, right? Because if the people at Doma can bring in outsiders who over valuate the wholesale value of domains, then great. Like if they come in thinking, oh, I'm going to buy into it at the retail value, then that's fantastic for domain investors short term, right? It's just that's something that will never be maintained long term if that's the principality of what's happening.
Okay, there's a lot of wrong information in that. First of all, they're nowhere are they saying that this is wholesale and retail and all that.
Yeah,
They're saying the domain is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the easiest way to understand this is that this is like an IPO. You come out with your IPO at the stock market, you list your company, and out of the company, only 20% sale, 20% of the shares are being offered to the general public, 80% are being retained by the promoters or whoever. Right?
Are they
this
all
is exactly it?
Are they all 80-20, or you just decided to do 80-20?
No, you can go up to, I think, 80% the other way.
Okay.
That means you can actually release 80% of the shares. As far as immediate liquidity is concerned, pretty bad idea. They're past that initial hump where people were excited about this. So not everything bonds. Most of the stuff doesn't bond. And the stuff that does bond, you're not getting full market value on that, even wholesale. So I think the max I got was the domain was $160. But since then, it's made about 30 odd bucks in tokenomics or whatever. My problem is it should be completely transparent. This is the money we collected. Like it's like an IPO, right? If you're going to look at it as an IPO, the banker has to tell you how much money was collected during the IPO, what percentage is spent where, and how much did you get. It's okay that you have to lock 50% into the whatever liquidity pool and all that. All that is fine. I don't mind all that. But it should be clear in black and white. It's not yet. I'm going to speak to Matt from who handles the UX for them, and he's going to try and explain stuff to me. So maybe we can revisit this in a little while. But otherwise, it's a risk. You're gonna take a risk. Go for it. All these guys, honestly, they've got crazy names, and some other names are great. Bragg, Swag, Software.ai, now Smoothie.com. Is it worth 3.5 million? Again, open to debate. Is it worth their bonding FDV is fully diluted value. That's the term. Now, whether that means fully diluted value of the tokens you're offering or of the entire domain, again, I'm not very sure.
Yeah,
so I don't want to.
That's a big problem. Like when I went there, there was no clarity, right? There was no okay, like if I want to list a domain, what exactly is the breakdown?
They don't even have a ledger. For example, they set up a wallet for me, for whatever you want to call it, which holds the tokens which I have bought of my own domains and the money that they've given me. I have no way of using crypto, so it's just sitting there. So, it's about 520 bucks.
My question to you: so the 4 domains that are like with vested or bonded or graduated, it basically means like the 20% of tokens or 20% of the domain value has been bought up, right? Is that
yeah? That means enough of the tokens have been bought for the domain to be listed on the exchange. Let's put it that way.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that all 20% has been taken up.
Definitely not. Because a certain percentage, I think 2 or 4% goes into some liquidity pool, 7% goes into vesting. So only about 10 or 12% has been bought, technically, from what I understand. Again, I'm being very clear. I'm pretty hazy about all this myself. But if you don't try new stuff, if you don't get, and I like the fact that these guys are risking their big names. If you don't try new stuff, how are we going to innovate? The industry hasn't changed in the 20 years I've been here, except that parking died. and then direct navigation died. And then Google fucked websites, sorry about the language, but with Penguin and Panda and that AMP and everything. So basically, Google wants to do away with domain names. Anything that's positive for domains, I'm behind it. Let's see what happens.
I mean,
Okay, sorry, my mom called for 30 seconds, but the question I have is, you said you listed them at the same price you had them already listed at Afternic, right? So is the 20% that you're up for sale, is that at the Afternic value or at like the wholesale equivalent, like 10% of that, or something
So
like that?
I'll give you a quick answer. I got 1% of the Afternic value as my payout for each of the domains. And for the biggest domain, which is listed at 50 grand, reality apps, I got 0.6%. So there's no.
Hold on, that 1% and 0.6%, does that represent the 20% of the like? I mean, that's again, like, it's the math just isn't clear. I'm not against it.
Yeah,
Just
so, okay, no, so let's take.
Yeah.
Let's take reality apps, right? 50 grand.
Okay.
20% of that retail value is 10 grand. Wholesale value, let's say 1 grand. So technically, if I got 50% of the 1 grand, I should get $500. Is that correct? I got about $360. So I'm giving you factual numbers.
So the 360,
Yeah.
does that represent the entirety of the 20%
Yes.
available? Okay, so in 360, so that means the retail value or the value that's currently the whole domain is worth, it would be $1,800. That would be like the wholesale amount, right? If it's 20%.
No, but it's not even that much. Like if you go to the domain right now, you will see that the market has dropped because people have pulled out money from all the other domains to invest in Smoothie. Because how this game works is when the IPO is bonding, when the domain is bonding, then you make money on trading. And of course, there's a lot of gamification where you get a rank, and the more you trade, the higher you go, all that kind of stuff.
And you get more unicorn stickers and whatever it is. Yeah. So this is exactly kind of what I was not fearing, but like, because I'm not scared of it, but what I was expecting to happen is that there's
Actually,
a limited number
Todd,
of
Ish is
money.
here. He might know more than me.
Yeah.
But I mean, the good news is we're done talking about it for right now. But Ish will like this next topic, and that is if you go to DNXshow.com, you'll see the topics. We'll revisit this, but all of us have our own understanding of it, and I understand what's going on. It's like, I was just going to say, Doma, yeah, if you're a domain owner, now, you can really insulate yourself from having some issues. Just have a big, if they do accept your name, if the super high buy it now price, all right, well, you don't have to sell until someone comes along with that super now buy it now. We've held names for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, so we don't mind. It's the new people that think, boy, I hope this sells for this buy it now price, and us domain investors are like, well, we might have to wait another 10 or 20 years. We might die with this thing if someone doesn't pay this ultra retail price we want. In the meantime, we've taken money out of it because of these people that are willing to get involved, these willing to buy parts of it, and they don't understand I still run the show and I'm not going to sell it unless I get this super high price. And if I do get this super high price, of course I'll pay them off their 20%. I might have increased the price 50% just before I played this little game here. So, anyway, you can control your destiny a little bit if you are the domain owner. But okay, so the topic I wanted to get to was Josh posted, developing your domains is literally the worst thing you could possibly do as a domain investor. Well, we all know, but then, you buy names. A lot of us became domain investors because we bought this one. My first one was ABC Productions. I bought it because I plan on using it for my business, and I did, and I have, and I still do. And then the next one, it was Todd Bryan, and of course that's a personal one, whether I've developed it before, I've redirected it before. Then you start buying domain names, and you realize, yeah, so a lot of these are names I probably won't develop. I could, but so those will go in the say the domain investor basket. And if somebody comes along, even the ones I've developed out, I'm willing to sell if the price is right. So, saying developing your names is literally the worst thing you could possibly do. Well, um, soon as you develop it, I mean, I guess it's like what Josh is doing with DNX. He considers, well, that's not a name, is one of his domain investing names. Anyway, that came from Drew and them. Okay, but the point is, so yeah, as soon as you develop out a name, then of course take it out of your domain investing basket. If you think, basically, I'll agree that having something developed out on your name usually doesn't help in selling the name, because then people think, unless that somebody just absolutely needs it and thinks, I want to buy you and your whole company, like Threads did. They're like, hey, we don't care that you got a whole business on there. We're Meta and we're going to buy Threads from you. But the point is, so it does confuse people, does detract from potential buyers, unless you have on there, hey, this name is for sale, even though it's developed out. So that I agree with. Developing out your domain is not great if you're trying to make people aware that it's for sale. But the worst thing you can do as a domain investor, I don't agree with that. So I think as a domain investor, as the time comes along, and especially nowadays, as you go through your portfolio and you think, and Samit, you were just saying about, I think it's great that people have these ideas. And Doma, that's sort of big, raised big money and then have this big platform and all these employees. I like, if you have a great idea, I don't care if you're one guy and you need to connect with some other, maybe some coders and some lawyers and so on, and still run a tight ship yourself. I like the new ideas. I like the new innovation. I like someone to be able to do what, Dome is doing, tokenizing names. That's, like I said, I have a different view on it because I've watched Chad do this for so long. And it's like, he was smart. He did it all with his own premium stuff. So then everybody else who has problems with it, you're not involved anyway. You're not even swimming in this pool. And he was like, he knows the issues of tokenizing and then fractionalizing names, and then there's a lot to it. But at least there wasn't outside parties involved in supplying their domain names. Now there are outside parties involved in who wanted to buy into the tokens. Okay. So getting back to developing, Samit, you spend a lot of time with companies who, obviously that's your business, to help companies build websites, develop out business ideas, and develop names. What do you think about Josh's statement? Developing domain names is just not smart for domain investors.
Yeah, they're two different businesses. I call it publishing. I don't call it developing. Publishing is a great business. I got into domains because of publishing. I'll explain. I started publishing India's first e-commerce site back in 1998. Feb 18th, 1998 is when we launched. And we also at that time were helping other people set up websites and all that. Set up their website, set up their email, get stuff working on the internet. Even though the target audience in India at that time was only 500,000 people. But again, I like to be a little early to the game. But I was too early to the e-commerce game in India because I was losing money on every transaction, no funding, bootstrapped, so pretty much got shafted. So by 2002, I was shutting down the e-commerce section, but I could still build websites. So I used to build a small website, sell it for 500,000, 2,000 on eBay, and including like Amazon A stores and travel sites with the EN affiliate now it's called, but that time Expedia affiliate now it's called, but that time it was an EN affiliate, IAN. Travel sites, hotel booking sites, mini sites basically. Charge 500,000, whatever, attach a nice four-letter.com to it. It used to sell fast. Like that time it used to take us about 20 days to build a website, 15, 20 days. But it would sell within the week. Like normal eBay listings were a week, so they would sell. By 2005, finding a four-letter.com became difficult. By 2006, finding a four-letter.com cheap, because I was buying the domains on eBay itself. I wasn't really I didn't know much about the whole domain ecosystem. It became kind of scarce. So I went around hunting for where can I buy domains cheap, right? And back in the 90s, I was on some forum with Rick and Frank Schilling and all that. But that was an IRC chat room or something like that, and I don't even remember. But again, I didn't really pay attention to it. I have a notebook somewhere which says buy domains with a 1999 date on it. I probably should have stuck to that instead of publishing, but it's okay. Hindsight is 2020. 2006, I started looking for domains, and then I heard about this forum called DN Forum. So December 2006, I joined DN Forum. I found the attitude there kind of sucked. So I looked for other domain forums. I found NamePros, joined in Jan. And that was probably the best thing I did because at that time in the live chats, you had Drake and Frank and Michael Perkins and Nat Cohen. All these guys used to hang around there and just chit chat or bid in the live auctions. I was in the live auction for the domains. I was the second highest bigger. But I didn't realize who I was up against. So anyway, let's not go there. So I realized that domains themselves have intrinsic value because a lot of times the people would buy the website from me, and even though they dropped the website, they didn't pay for the hosting renewal. They kept the domain names, and I used to wonder, like, what is it going to do with the domain name without the website? What's the point? How are they going to make money? I didn't know all about parking. I didn't know about all. I mean, I knew the affiliate game, but I wasn't really involved because I'm more a builder, so it's just easy to build and get out. Development is one business. Domaining is an entirely different business. And as a domainer, if I own a domain and my only aim is to sell it, not to develop it, I want a minimalist lander there. That's why Dan was so popular. Even on Atom, the names which I have listed, I have minimalist landers. I like the new custom lander at Afnik or these kind of things, which is very basic. This domain is for sale. This is the price. This is the LTO. This is the make offer or whatever variation thereof you want to keep. And don't complicate it. I come across these elaborate vibe coded pages which look like a horror from some disco nightmare. And this is somewhere it says the domain is for sale, or this we are inviting joint venture development. Bro, no one wants to fucking joint venture your two-word.xyz. But if you want to sell the domain, keep it simple. If you want to develop it, you're not only developing a domain, you're developing a business. There's a lot more to the business than just building a website. They build it and there'll come days, they've gone long back.
Yeah, those were gone like 25 years ago, right? That almost never existed. It was easier back then for sure, but it was never build it and they were come. I think I agree with almost everything you said there, Sumit. And that's the reason why lately I'm a little bit frustrated with all the domain investing rooms that talk about build out, because I see it the same way as you. There's two very separate things. Like, let's be very clear. The highest value of a domain name is under a business that's built out properly with a good team, a good business plan, all the fundamentals that need to be there, which rarely happens, but does happen, right? And that's where the highest value of the domain name will be extracted, right? Other than that, if you're a domain investor, and you're fumbling around and whatever it is, I mean, I truly believe that every single person who's a domain investor should build out one domain just to experience it, to see what it's like, to see what your customer's point of view is like, and all that stuff. But that's a different thing, right? That's not increasing value, whatever it is. It's just like you should do it as experience because it's part of what you're doing, and you want to really understand your potential buyers, right? But other than that, I mean, yeah, putting up a business on there. First of all, the first question any buyer is going to ask is, well, what's the business making, right? And again, there are exceptions, but for the most part, especially for the vast majority of us who sell, typical bread and butter, two-word.coms or brandables or whatever it is, most of our buyers are those buyers who go to bed one night with some dream of some business, and they wake up the next day and they got to get this domain to match that business, right? So by having a business already there, you're taking away from their dream, right? Now it's they're seeing a different business as your dream, your vision for it, but it muffles what their dream is, and that's what you want to sell into, is the buyer's dream. Like that's the best case scenario. It's not only that the in their minds the domain is already built out. It's built out in exactly what they want in their head when they're coming to buy the domain. Obviously it's not the reality, but that's really the psychology behind it. Is that you see most domains for the majority of us bread and butter domain holders, domains never get built out. But why is that? It's because exactly that. They had their dream and then they realize, oh, it's not as easy as I thought, right? And that's the whole thing, is that at the end of the day, I don't care. I sell the domain. I sell the domain. If they never build it out, well, it kind of sucks. I'd rather than build it out and be successful. But they bought the domain. That's all I need. So, and they're buying into at a price point which matches their dream. So, building this is a distraction in my mind. And the other thing that what these conversations frust me a bit is that oftentimes it's framed in a way that, oh, you're not making sales, you're not a profitable domainer, build out your domains and it'll change things, right? And that's, if you're building out, that's not the way to do it. You want to get a domain that matches the business that you want to build, and that you get that business, you get the domain after you figure out the vision for what business you want to build.
I got
It's
tons of
not,
stuff to say here.
Sorry
Regu,
to
go
interrupt
ahead,
you.
and then I got to say
Yeah.
a ton of stuff.
I mean, I think I can only see one aspect of investor to put hands in making some website or designing something, to just feel and like a product. They're still selling it, and feel and see. That's the only reason I would see investors will make a site, because sometimes, yeah, that sometimes it's obvious domains, exact match maybe works without a website, but
yeah,
if you
I
have a
want
brand name or something you want to have an idea to display as your product, it I think is the next level. That's all I can say. We are good for.
Here's the thing I want to be clear about is that I'm not saying don't build anything out, right? Is that what Josh said is as a domain investor. So
Yeah.
those domains that you want to sell as a domain investor to flip from a wholesale price to a retail price, that's one category of domains. And if you're also interested in it or you want to build something out yourself, do it.
We
Right?
understand.
And there's
Hold on. Let me
nothing
go.
stopping
You're
you.
talking so much, and it's like, first of all, when you say domain investors, everybody in this room, no one starts as a domain investor. So I always hated, like I said, no, we're so different. All of us are so motherfucking different, and it's like, if you're a domain investor, like they say that we all, no one starts off as a domain investor. Everybody started off as either they're in some other profession, and then you come over to domain investing. Now if your intention is to sell the domain name, yeah, then don't even develop it out. I agree with that. Don't develop it out. If you're doing it just to make the domain busy, but you're still, it's like a teeter totter. If more than half of, more than 50% of your intention is to sell that domain name, don't build it out. But the truth is, when it comes to building domain names or building businesses, many times, a lot of us we're more, still, I say, more entrepreneurs than we are domain investors. But we're still a domain investor, and then you come over and you're like, listen, it's like poker players. I'm more of a businessman than a poker player, but I'm better than you at poker. So fuck you too. So I'll come over to your business and fucking like domain investing and show I can succeed at this too, even though it's not even my number one thing. But the point is about building out it. We were just saying it, you have to build things, and you learn, especially when you're young, you're going to learn, geez, okay, so this one wasn't successful. That wasn't successful. Building businesses takes a lot, and many times you can, you start building a business, if it's something you're not going to just give up on, you have to take these chances of taking a name. And in the old days, you built them and they did come. Okay, I did it with some delivery names, and because there was so much traffic that came before 2013, because people would search a specific term and it would go to the exact match domain name. Yes, you build it on an exact match, and they did come, and you did make a bunch of money. You had to back it up with a real business, a real product, real delivery, real whatever it was, real fulfillment. But the truth is,
That's not business. It's a lot.
and that was before 2013, right? But the point is, when you're
Well, since you're saying it's a business.
yeah,
Right?
but
Again,
but you're not, and like that, you've worked for somebody, okay? So when I say you've worked for the casinos, and then you're a domain investor. So you've never built companies and then said, okay, so now I'm going to ship this product, I'm going to answer this customer service, I'm going to do all this. So my point is, when it comes to entrepreneurs that are doing this, you sometimes you'll take you want to take domain names. We know it's a separate business, but the
I'm not
difference is it's like
disagreeing.
real
I'm not
estate
disagreeing with you.
and being a contractor. My point is, sure,
I'm
just
not
buying a
disagreeing
house
with
and
you.
flipping, it's different than being a contractor. But the thing is, there's a lot of common denominators there. There's a lot of the same things that people use a domain name. But my point is, I just don't know. I mean, when I hear people talk about you don't do this
But
with names, like don't develop them out. Well, yeah, because you
I'm not
guys are
saying that.
aren't
But
you're not an
Todd,
entrepreneur. You're
I'm
not
not
an
saying that.
entrepreneur. You're not
But
an
Todd,
entrepreneur. I'm
stop,
telling you,
stop.
you're not.
Todd,
So when I hear you talking,
Todd,
I'm like, this guy's a fucking like
I'm
most
not saying anything that you're
95%
saying I'm
people in
saying.
this room. Everybody works for
Todd,
somebody.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything that you're saying I'm saying. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's not domain investing, right? I'm
Well,
not
no
saying don't do it.
shit, no shit. Don't say stuff that's so obvious. We know it. We know it's not domain investing.
Well,
Yeah, but
that's
also
all I'm saying.
one sec. There
I
are
mean,
different
if you
kinds
have the
of
ability to
domains,
build
right?
something out, do it. If you have the time and the ability and the money and resources to do it and do it well,
That's just
then
it.
do
The
it.
thing is, but the thing is, like, do it well. Many times, it's the time is changed. It used to take a lot more time. The resources used to take a lot more resources. And it's like even from the big companies like Doma, they throw shit at the wall. You hope it sticks. I like for the small individuals to do the exact same thing. And you know what? Over the years, I've done several different things. Most of it, I never look at anything that's ever failed because I'm like, listen, I'll continue to run that business until I can make it profitable. Or if it was profitable, like I had a company, Cali Girl, very profitable from say 2000 to 2005, then pretty much not profitable after that. Since then, the point is, if I never have to put it out of business if I don't have any overhead for it. I guess the point is, when it comes to just being an entrepreneur, you're going to have to take some chances. Some things aren't going to succeed, and now is a better time than ever with to develop out businesses because it takes a lot less time, it takes a lot less resources. But it's the same for everybody. So it's still very difficult to be successful, but if you're just passionate about, building a business, now's, there's no better time in my opinion. Ish, go ahead, and then we'll go to iDigital.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I actually enjoy this debate about development. First of all, I think what Josh said was from Josh's perspective, and it doesn't apply to everyone. Josh has found success identifying names, and he does very well doing exactly that, buying and selling names. But when you look at a domain has multiple utilities, and one of the most identifiable utilities in this vibe coding era is you can look at some of your names and go, this name could potentially earn, recurring revenue. And what used to take, what Samit was saying, 3 weeks to develop could take 3 minutes now. And so it forces you to sort of like reevaluate names when you're selecting them and saying, okay, maybe I can build a directory with this. Maybe I can build something that generates revenue or a MVP, and that has value. There's always been a business of people buying websites. They have their own marketplaces. They play the game differently. Of course, a name you want to sell to an end user, you don't live in a house you want to sell. That's like common sense, right? Right. So, but for if you have a portfolio, there's nothing wrong with identifying a name or a couple of names that you could develop. And I actually encourage people to look into that. I found some traction doing that. There are a lot of people on X that have multiple projects on what we would consider inferior domains. So we have the advantage of being able to identify better domain names. Like go look at Mark Liu, for example. He has multiple platforms like DataFast, DATAFA.SC. And these guys are very transparent. They show you what they make every month. So developing domains, of course, it comes with a different set of rules you have to execute. And you might even have to do some marketing or, more, you have to be more hands-on. It's a different ball game, but it's very related to domain investing. To me, it is domain investing because if you have the right name, then you have an edge, right? There's some names that you look at the data, they have their EMDs that already have organic visitors, and you just basically plug something on there and tap into that cash flow. So, they're two different things, but they're very, for someone who's managing a portfolio, it's something to consider if you have the ability and the skill set and the willingness to do it.
If your background's an entrepreneur or a business owner and then you end up getting into domain investing, it's only natural for you to build out something. Now, if you're somebody who's always worked for someone else. And I'm not saying this about Arif. I'm saying this about, I tell this to 99% of my friends. I tell them all, when they want to come over and start a business, or they want to be an entrepreneur, I tell them, you better go back and go back to your job and get that paycheck. You're fucking come out here in the ocean. This is what we call it. It's like swimming out here in the ocean where you got to just make money. I used to compare it to, yeah, I got to go out. I'll find money on a tree. You know, you got to go make money. When you don't work for somebody else who gives you a paycheck, you got to, but that's when the rubber meets the road, and that's when you really have to build businesses that make money. Otherwise, you can't pay your bills. But most people, that's 99% of the people here in America. I don't know about other places. They all get paychecks. My brother, big paychecks. I used to wonder, how do these people get all these big paychecks? Every time I worked at a big office, all we did is read the paper most all the day. They don't even work all the time. And basically, they can't wait to take their break, and it's just ridiculous. But anyway, most people, they need to be on, I'm not going to say bad words. They need to be, anyway, they need to make sure they get that paycheck, because otherwise they're going to fucking just be homeless. So that's why if you have a background of somebody who's an entrepreneur or a business person who built businesses, and then you get into domain investing, it's only natural and smart for you to go, okay, now let me pick some things that I want to get behind, and we're going to talk about that Spandy that even Courtney, I saw that he's building out. But Digital, what question did you have about our conversation today? Yeah, when I say Digital, you know who I'm talking to. You requested to be up here. Come off mute.
I think his name is Gideon.
Well, congratulations for that too. Gideon, you want to say anything?
Going once, going twice.
Yeah.
Let me qualify.
Yeah.
Let me qualify this conversation about development. Todd. There are lots of kinds of domains, right? There are EMDs. A lot of SEOs like EMDs for lead gen. There are domains, brandables, like for most of the brandables that we own, like twoword.coms or made up words or stuff like that. Developing on them is really not a bad idea, because, like RF said, you are limiting the vision of the buyer by developing something, and that's limited to what you're building.
I mean, I
What
think that's definitely obvious. I think that's why I mentioned EMDs. Like, there's some EMDs that you might like. Maybe when you purchased it, it could have been at the closeout or at the auction, and you're like, "This is a good name," and the buyer never comes, and you're like, "I have this name. I know it's a good name," and then suddenly it clicks to you, like, "Oh wow, maybe I need to develop this name." I have a name like that, btcloan.org. When I went to the Bitcoin conference, I met with Arch Finance, and I was like, "Hey, do you guys have an affiliate program?" Blah blah blah, and hit it off with the CMO. I vibe coded a website, and I think Bitcoin conference was in April. I've already earned over $3,000 in commissions. I didn't have to do anything. All I have to do was build a website, and they just sent me a report. Someone took a loan out from your website. So I think you know, I could have easily sold that domain for 3,000 and made profit, but now I have something that I can, you know, I see that organically makes me money, and now I can advertise. I can do all type of stuff to scale it if I choose to. But more importantly,
Yeah,
the reason why I think it's important to build out domain names is there's an exit strategy. Like, if you can build something successfully that generates revenue, then you can sell it for a multiple of your your EBITDA, which is very appealing. And especially now that you have all these tools, and vibe coding is getting easier, where they just re-release Fable. It's a very, very enticing proposition to look at your domains and go, I want to build out more names. I want to build out this name. I want to build out this type of names. And once you identify what you're good at and what you want to build, focus on that. You can do both concurrently is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
You
I
can't just
totally
say,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can do both. You don't have to
That's
conflate
yeah.
them.
I totally
yeah.
agree with you. The only thing is I'm saying it's two different things, because to run a business is
Oh, for
still
sure.
business, right? It's two different things. But I mean, again, like I agree, it's getting easier and easier. And yeah, there might be a point in time 5 years from now when you have your domains at a certain registrar, and they have all this AI built in, and you press a button and it's built out, and it's super easy, right? I mean, in
They all
cases,
do today.
especially,
All the registers have
Dynadot,
it.
but
Dynadot,
international
Unstoppable,
business, right? But it's
Hostingo,
If your
yeah,
primary
all
but
of them
reason is
have
it's not
to
it.
a big
sell a
business,
domain
right?
name, don't
You have
build
to be able
on
to
it.
answer the phones and all that stuff. You have to be able to deliver whatever it is.
Sh-
It's not as easy as that,
No,
but
no,
it is
no.
getting
You don't
there,
have to.
right?
You don't have to build a physical business, RF. You can do lead gen. You can like what Ish is talking about is lead gen, right? He's
I
creating
totally agree with
leads
that.
for. But in a website like BTC Loan, uh, there's nothing else you can do
There's
Yeah.
no
for
So,
BTC
inventory.
Loan.
There's nothing.
so
Yeah, yeah.
in cases like that, it's certainly more beneficial or less risky to lose the value of the domain when you sell it, right? Especially if you have those contacts, that makes a huge difference. Now, again, you could say anybody can make those phone calls and connect with people, but not everybody does that, right? And so there is that fear there for some people. But again, if you can do it, right? I'm never saying don't do it. I'm just saying if you have
Yeah,
a different
I mean,
set worthwhile,
I
then
have
go
I
for it.
have 1,200 domains, and I also have 200 websites. So it's not that I'm only doing one thing. I'm just saying it's not easy.
Yeah, and in fact, I agree with what Todd said earlier on too. Is that most of us got into this because we bought domains that we were going to build out one day, right? "Quote unquote," build out one day. And even Sumit, I'm sure even you already have 200 that are built out, but I'm sure you still have more domains in your portfolio that you plan to build out, but you just didn't get
I
around
have
to it.
40 under development. I had over almost 300 websites, but I canned about 75 of them because they weren't performing. They weren't earning any revenue, just costing me in hosting and in management. So I
Yeah,
nuked those. But yeah, I have 40 under build out right now.
yeah. I have 5,000 domains. I have 300 of them that are tagged as maybe build out one day, and out of those, there's about 100 that aren't even for sale, right? That I'm
So
like,
so
here's something new,
so at Domain Expo last year, this guy came from Ezoic, and Ezoic is a publishing company. They're kind of like Google AdSense, and he was showing us sites that were making like $200,000 a month, $300,000 a month, and these are domains that if you listen to the domain names, you're like, what the hell? This is not a this is a horrible name, or this is a horrible extension. But I think that for me, because when I speak about or encourage people to build out, if you take it as horrible advice, dismiss it, right? But if you want to consider building domain names, I urge you to look into it, because a domain, from what I learned coming into business, was people look at domain names differently. The reason why Rick Schwartz is super successful was he didn't have to sell names. He figured out a way to make money off the names that he had, right? From traffic. And that was the advantage that he had by being early. We are at an inflection point where we are super early, right? Like, we're gonna look at the AI we have today in 5 years and be like, can you believe we're tripping out on Fable? Like, it's gonna look so old and dated. And so it's like, if you don't start developing that mindset, and and start failing forward in terms of like that utility in your portfolio of building names, then you're going to be obsolete, in my opinion. It's like, you can't just, at some point, some people will find success, and there are a lot of people that have found success just buying and selling names, and they have other revenue streams, or they do it at a level where they don't need to do other things. But I'll be damned if I just sat here and waited for names to be sold when I can I can develop income streams that could potentially have a 6, 7 figure exit with the same names that are just sitting there, right? So names are liability until they're sold. And one of the ways you can minimize that liability is by looking at one or two names to build. And it's easier than ever. And the same energy it takes for you to manage your portfolio and list names, that level of execution is what it takes to develop some of these names today. So it's just a mindset shift. It's like, okay, it's like someone owns property and some guy goes, you can make money from Airbnb, and you're like, oh, never Airbnb my house. And someone else goes, I found a lot of success doing Airbnb. You can't say one is right or wrong. It's a matter of preference.
There's going to be
Yeah, it's
some
just a different
people.
thing. And again, like, I agree with everything you said. It's the exception of domains being a liability, right? If you have a
They
profitable
they are
portfolio,
though. They are.
but
If you
no,
don't
well,
sell them, they're a liability.
hear me out though, because for me, I see my portfolio overall as the math of the portfolio, right? The performance of the portfolio, and if my portfolio is positive, then the domains in that portfolio, as long as they're evaluated correctly, by me, by my gut check or whatever it is, then every domain in that portfolio is not a liability. Every domain in that portfolio is a 1% chance of selling for 150x of what I bought it for, right? And that math works out to a profitability. So every domain in my portfolio are not liabilities for me. Right now, again, you have to really be good at assessing your portfolio, understanding what domains have that potential for sale and which don't. But that's why I'm saying domain investing and build out are different things, because that math is different. Neither are wrong choices, right? In fact, again, I will agree with everybody to say that if you have the skills and the time and the resources, build something out. And I'd say even if you haven't built anything out
So
before,
you're
do it
giving
anyway.
the opposite of what Josh is advising.
No, I agree with him. I agree with him 100%.
You
But he
just
said,
said the opposite of what he said.
no, he says building out is bad as a domain for domain investing, right? If your domains are for flipping, right, from wholesale to retail, then I agree with Josh that building out is not the, again, there are
So
exceptions.
we define domain investing differently. You're talking about domain flipping. To me, domain investing is what can I do with this name, and it's not limited to selling it. It could be renting
Yeah,
it. It could be leasing it. It could
and
be
I
building
agree.
it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the definition is the sticking point here a little bit, but for me, the definition flips from investing to building when the amount of time and energy and resources exceed the value of that you put in for the domain, right? The wholesale value you put in, which is the case for almost every business today. 5 years from now, the way AI is going, that's definitely shifting in the other direction, where it's easier and easier, and the cost and resources and time and energy to actually build the business might be less than most wholesale values of domains. But today it's not there, and it's not close to being there. Again, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying is that for me is the difference. Right?
Ish
When you're
made a
putting your time and energy,
Ish
go
made a
ahead.
great
Go ahead.
point there about the definition of domain investing. When you come from the perspective of you're a person who builds businesses, then you're thinking domain investing is, sure, a lot of these I'm not going to build on, except boy, when I find the right one, I am. And then there's some people who think, hey, listen, I make my money over here. I work at a bank. I invest in domain names purely to flip these names. I don't plan on building on any of them. I've never built on them. Like I said, it really does come from your mindset too. I know some people who are, have been paid by a company their whole life, and now they're wanting to. I have some friends, they retired after 35 years at Rolls Royce, and now they finally want to come over and run their own business, and I want them to. But they're lucky they got money in the bank, because the point is now they're trying to shift their mindset. The point is, when it comes to most people, they get paid over here. That's where they make their money. So they never thought about building a domain out. And I'm all with them. If you're like, listen, Samit was saying some names you don't want to build on because it's going to ruin. Yeah, if you primarily have that name to sell it, well, you don't enter a marathon and only plan on running a couple miles. If you're going to build a domain, you need to really consider going the distance, meaning, yeah, not giving up. The nice thing about if you have some experience as a domain investor, you do understand. That's like me. I want to build this name. Worst case is if it doesn't work out, I do have a little bit of a safety net, like maybe I can sell the asset, I can sell the domain name. Now, quickly, I want to say about Pay Now. So Pay Now, we spent a lot of time allowing individuals and businesses to get paid on their domain name. And, instead of using a long wallet address, which is really, simple, it's really just finding the business. But what we did just in the last few months, and I wish we'd have done this from the start, shifted to where now we're really just an affiliate. I say we have relationships with two different companies, but if you go to Pay Now, it's like, hey, do you need some help processing credit cards? We're for merchants now. Do you need help processing credit cards? Okay, the old days, or do you want to start accepting crypto at your, at your business, and that you don't? Okay, well, we basically now, just in the last week, we had 12 applications. Only one of them was approved, and that was already doing business at $30,000 a month in this is credit cards. This is just traditional. We had 19 new customers in crypto. But my point is, this is in 1 week. Okay, I bring this up because now when a company wants to come in and they're interested in pay now, okay, they don't have to think, well, we don't want, I mean, the whole strategy of the whole platform that you built, a company can come in and say, we love those leads. I guess what I'm getting at is when you set up a site that's not a business, but just an affiliate site, then it's much easier for a new company to come in and take over that website and understand we're going to use those leads. It's different than building, a business selling lawn care products on a domain name and then on a brandable, and then a new owner comes in and says, we planned on using it to, have a service that was a completely different service for air conditioners, but we just like this brandable. The point is, depending on how you're building out some of these names, it does certainly, it's going to affect the potential for selling that name or that website in the future. But I guess it's just when some of us come from the angle of we have to always think of ways to make money in businesses. So we're thinking, how am I going to build a business? And then as domains, it's beautiful because you feel like you're part of all sorts of industries. And then if you have experience in a certain one, then you can just take a name now. And it doesn't mean it's easier to, when people started coming out with these digital cameras and stuff, you know how much easier it is to make movies now, and how much easier it is to, edit films. And basically now with AI, it's so much easier, but still in the last month, there's been 2 YouTube movies that became some of the highest grossing movies, but we waited years for that. The point is, so it's much easier to make films now. It's much easier to build websites now, but that doesn't mean everybody has like these same magic shoes. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to perform everybody else. We all have the same tools. Okay. So it's nice, and it can I use it all just to motivate me, because some of us do like to, be the one man show and then just outsource. When I need lawyers, I talk to them. When I need help with, payroll, I'll outsource it to them. But now it's just exciting if you truly are a entrepreneur to know, all right, I got all these tools. And then of course, some of us think we have experience with domain names, so we know what can, sort of elevate us to the next level, or at least show authority. Listen, these names that I've worked with, whether it's, in the last 3 names I've been building on, Pay Now, Domain Escrow, and Dick. All right, well, I like the names, though those names always get traffic, and they do lend some authority, especially when I hold my package and I'm walking through Walmart. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. No kids with motherfucker.
Hey, you know
Yeah,
who
go
you
ahead.
know who else is advising people to build names by demonstration? Rick Schwartz, right? There's another domainer that I'm going to give a lot of credit to because I talked to him. I don't know if he wants me to say his name, but he's in Asia, right? And he has one of the most well-known tools in the domain industry, right? People use it to check CLDs and all kind of other stuff, right? And this guy has built out 30 domains. Some of them are for like board games and things like that. And I was just talking to him recently because I wanted his feedback on what I'm building, which is sites.me. And he loved it. And he was like, keep building. It was like, don't restrict yourself to building just this one site. Find names like this that you can build stuff on, because it's very easy for you to sell that name once it's built. But there are only specific names that you are taking away from your inventory of traditional domain flipping. But to say that it's not domain investing is not true. It's like real estate development. I can decide to sell the land, or I can decide to put a structure, or I can decide to sell it with a CAD and an approval from the city, right? Or I can sell condos. You take it as far as your skill set allows you to, in my opinion. And I think with vibe coding and different backgrounds, everyone has a different way of looking at it, right? If you can find success in identifying great names and flipping them, oh, that's the easiest path for sure. But if you're willing to take it to the next level and take a name and build a newsletter, or take a name and build an app, there's a lot of success that people have found with that, and you could also discover that, right? So I don't think anyone should limit themselves to just, you
Yeah,
can do it
yeah.
all.
You
You
know,
can do it
let
all.
Yeah,
me
but
be
Ish,
clear.
there
Let me
is
be
a
clear
limit to
before
it.
you do
The
this.
reason I've cut
No, there's
down
no
my
limit.
website.
There's no fucking limit. What do you mean there's a limit
No,
to it? There's no limit.
I may disagree with that in any way. I'm just saying, like, there's 2 different buckets. Even I want to build stuff out one day,
right? And that's fine.
You're not
You
going
said
to
you
build
put your,
anything because you're not wired like that. I'm not going to
no,
not build stuff
I
that's
have built out stuff before,
no, no, you build
right?
a website. Look, listen, I run 4
Oh,
conferences.
I have built
Well,
out
no, but
websites before.
we're wired differently though. What I'm saying is there are people that are naturally builders and there are people that are naturally more passive domain flippers, and there's nothing wrong with either. It's a skill.
I agree. I
It's a
agree.
mindset thing. Yeah. No, neither one is right or wrong. You could do both. You could do one and ignore the
I
other.
encourage people to do both, right? And there's opportunity to build out. There's tons of opportunity. I'm just saying is that, well, Josh is here, he can speak for himself too, is that when it comes to domain investing, like the domain, you want to separate your domain categories, right? The
I
stuff
mean,
you want to
that's all,
sell.
like I said, you can't sell the house you live in. It's like
Sure,
that's
sure, but,
obvious, right?
but then you've also spent a lot of time building it out, right? It's not just the real estate acquisition. You've actually put money into the construction costs, the resources, your time, all these other things. That's not just the land anymore,
That's what
right?
you get paid for. That's why people.
Sometimes yes, but sometimes you can just flip the land too, right? But with this flipping the land, you don't have to do all these other things. You don't have to be expert in all these things. You don't have to be good at construction. You don't have to be good at knowing all the
We're
other
not we're
things.
not we're not we're not we're not comparing. We're saying two different things. What I'm saying is in 2026 with vibe coding and AI, I'm Josh is here. I'm saying it right in front of you and Josh. I encourage every domain investor to look into building some of
Right.
the names, or if you have it in you and are willing to put in the work, there's nothing wrong with developing some of your domain names. But when you decide to develop a domain, it's not the same as a domain you're flipping.
Exactly. We're
Okay,
saying the same thing.
so Josh,
Josh
did
is
you
here. He
make
can
it
talk. He can
across?
talk for himself. Yeah.
Are you over there now? I mean, did you make it across? And then we're talking about your your ex post about you shouldn't develop a name if you're domain investing, if you're using it for domain investing. But tell us first, did you make it across the pond safely?
I did make it across the pond safely. I'm in France with my family, extended family, which is nice. And I just went on X and realized that this is the time of the show, so I thought I'd hop on quickly. So
Well,
glad I was
thanks.
able to catch you guys.
Just
I will say a couple things on that topic if you don't mind.
Yeah, no,
You good
absolutely.
with
But
that?
before you do, I'm going to let you go. I wanted to say you're not being a traitor in France. There's everybody's saying they're the favorite in the World Cup. I watched the England game. I know you were fucking going, this is unfucking believable. And you got Mexico next. So this is an exciting time for you. But what are you doing in France? I hope you're representing properly.
Of course, I'm representing properly. I'm only here for 7 days or so. My parents live here, so we met up in France, which is not something my wife and I would usually do, but we make an exception.
Okay, so
Extreme
on your way out,
circumstances.
use it and don't flush it. Anyway, okay, so I don't care about that. Hey, Josh, so this, yeah, big topic. We were saying the developing, and then Ish brought up on your post, yeah, but you're developing out DNX, but of course that's a different situation, and you've developed out DNWE. So sometimes as an entrepreneur, because you certainly are, some of those names in your portfolio. Once you develop it out, it's no longer a name that you're willing to flip. Now you are willing to sell it. You even said DNX. Somebody wants 10 million. It's like what Ish was just saying about in the house. You don't sell a house that you live in. Well, yeah, you do, as long as you know you got a backup to go to. But tell us a little more in depth why you were bringing up this comment about don't develop out names, you crazy domain investors. You're just stepping on your
Well,
toes.
first of all, there's lots of ways to make money, and there's also different ways to make money with domains. But everyone in here is following us and talking to us because they are in the business of domain investing. So, if you're in the business of domain investing, you're not in the business of building. So, while sure, I encourage everyone to try and build out a business here and there. I think that's a good idea. I think that everyone should try it. It has nothing to do with domain investing, in my eyes. They're completely different businesses. So, there's this. I don't know. It's kind of a new thing where there's like this crossover, but really, the only really truly successful builders are either people that built businesses and they weren't just selecting a domain from their portfolio. They were thinking of a business and then they found a domain to a company that idea. It may or may not have been in their portfolio. DNX was not in my portfolio, for example. DNWE was, um, but I wasn't developing the domain because I had the domain. I was using a domain because I had a business idea, which is just different. So yeah, I mean, I just think we're conflating two very different things. Anyone can build. I agree, but just because we're domain investors, it doesn't give us really any kind of big advantage when it comes to building a business. Um, yeah, I mean, actually, I think that's pretty clear because in general, most domain investors are pretty bad at it. So, yeah, that's just my
Well,
my view on the
Arif's been
topic. I think
saying
it
that.
just gets. I think it just gets too. It's too conflated. It gets too complicated. I mean, we're domain investing is hard enough. When you come and we're all here because we want to learn how to buy and sell domain names. So, and building a business is just. It's you're talking like when you talk about domain flipping, it's like climbing, the local hill in your neighborhood, right? And getting really good at climbing that hill. And then when you talk about building a business, what you're talking about climbing Mount Everest now, it's just a completely different thing.
Josh, you made a good point. And Arif's been really saying that too, that we're conflating two different things, and we all understand that. And then some of us come from the attitude that we know they're different things, but some of us we just see some of the common denominators in it. And listen, I'm a big proponent of listen, you said it doesn't, being a domain investor doesn't help you in business. I always felt like, and you and I've talked about it, having a great domain sometimes doesn't even help your business. We've seen good businesses, they happen normally because there's motivated, smart, good, even sometimes not even planning. It's just somebody who's like, listen, I'm going to turn this plumbing business of mine into something big because I'm going to get up before everybody else. I'm going to bed after everybody else, and I'm going to constantly hand out my card. I'm going to find business. I'm going to build this son of a bitch because I'm fucking motivated. So, and it's not even about a website. Even, businesses can be successful without websites. Even online businesses. We've seen people that almost doesn't make sense, but we've just seen people be successful swimming, upstream. So not only if you have a good domain name, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great business person. And Josh, you bring up a good point, and Arif's brought it up several times. A lot of us have know it, and that is these are two completely separate things. But us that are entrepreneurs, when we get into domain investing, we can't help but think, man, I'm going to put that one to use. And we know, some of us know we can. And we know not that we can, we're just confident in ourselves, but we also know when we go to bed at night, listen, even sometimes you have the best idea, you have the best execution, and it still doesn't work out. It's the wrong timing. There's something that didn't work. And, but like I said, when it just comes from the different mindsets of, some people feel more confident in, actually building a business and have done it before, so they know they can do it again, even though it's very difficult. Okay, getting back to, you made a very good point about people come here to listen about domain investing and how can you flip names. And when people talk about that, I love the way it sounds myself, because then it sounds like, right, you picked a name, flipped it pretty fast. I'm trying to look at our outline. Oh, I wanted to bring up this while you're here. This couple sales that happened. This BETTO sold for 128,000, and it sounded like the person. I need to check that. I think I got the link there. I think the person only owned it like 7 or 8 months. Um, that might be the one, or it might be that next one that's on the outline, Insta Cloud, for 29,888. But yeah. So the one Beto was hold time 18 months. He acquired it for mid four figures. So let's assume he bought it for 6 grand, selling it for 128,000. Great. Just, it's, I don't say a new phenomena, but you hold names for so long. Now I'm seeing people that get these big sales, truly flips, selling them in a year, selling them in 8 months. Um, are you noticing? I mean, with a lot of the portfolio that you've picked up, Josh, in the last year or two, do you sell those? I mean, are you just buying better names? Are they selling faster? I don't know what my question is. I guess is flipping
Yeah,
domain
so
names
like beto.com for a
Beto? Yeah,
start. It fits into one of the big four, right? I talk about the big four categories, which is um, crypto, AI, gambling, health. Those are the big four. And any name that you have that clearly fits into the big four like that is a name that you should be moonshotting. It was interesting. I was reading the article this morning, DNW, Domain Name Wire, and he said that he's kind of adjusted his strategy recently to first of all, he was talking about moving away from closeouts and low priced auctions, moving to hand regs for those kind of like lower priced names, and then also on the names that a little better, he's now moonshotting them. And I think that most investors that are in this game, I do think that that is the strategy. I think that you want to be looking for names in the big four, avoiding names that you know, don't have huge upside. We're talking like geos or like stuff in, I don't know, even honestly, media, sports, just like people don't come along and pay big money for those type of names, no matter how good they are, very often. So, really try to hone in on AI, crypto, gambling, health, those four. And when you can find a good name, overpay for it, because if it is a really good name, you're going to have a good shot of moonshotting that name. Um, I've been focused on that more over the last 2 years, and I can tell you it's worked out pretty well.
Well, what you've been sharing is valuable. I noticed you said, "Hey, I bought all these foundation.org names, different name, and none of them sold." And what tell us a little bit about how many of those did you buy? Just tell people real quick about this, this test that you did with these names that had foundation.org in them. How many you bought? What results you got over the year or two?
So I only bought about 100 of them. But ideally, you want to have seen a couple of sales in that period. I bought these names because I noticed that there were a lot of very strong keywords to renew them for one more year. And if I'd have to guess, I would say I'll probably make a sale or two in year two, but not guaranteed. And I would say that one of the reasons for that is it does target a niche that is less likely to spend money. So when you have a limited budget, right, and you want to be very careful and not spend on things that you're unsure about, it's not the kind of thing I would recommend. Right? I mean, I take a few risks here and there so that I can go into what I would consider uncharted territory, or at least territory that I'm not entirely sure at, and I can't find data points to kind of really tilt me one way or the other. If I was talking to someone that was tight on a budget, I would say don't do that. I would say focus on what you know and what we know, and what we know is from like a hand reg perspective is like focusing on stuff that is high in demand, and that would be health related stuff, AI related stuff, crypto related stuff. That there's going to be some demand there. So yeah, this one is slightly different. But yeah, I'm not fully convinced that it was um, that they're bad hand registrations. But full transparency, none of them sold. So up until this point, it was a failure.
Well, you said too another thing, and I appreciate you joining us. I know you're over there with family, and I want to thank again Samit. He's going to be with me all month, and everybody else too. Arif and Ish, we're going to hold this thing together while Josh is on holiday. Us goofy Americans, we call it vacation. We don't know shit from Shinola. Okay, so um, Josh, you said about sharing information as a domain investor. You do it for clout. It really doesn't help anything you as much. But then you just shared, hey, I didn't sell anything of these names. People really do. I mean, I know as an investor, I like to know, all right, I do, I used to do it more, but exactly like that. Try this. I just, did that with 400 or 500 names that had meta in them. And I did them last year with names that had pay, like pay Betty instead of just what Rick had. But pay Mike, pay Brad, pay so and so, just the common names. And try different things because I like, two words to me. I thought people are going to want to get paid online. Why wouldn't you want to have your name? And then Meta, that's so popular. Boy, I know I'm going to make a fortune there. I did sell Meta Gus for $6,300, within a year of buying that. So, you $10 to 6,300. I sold Meta share as in Bono. But anyway, so do you really feel sharing information like we do here every week is not worthwhile? I mean, you said it's for cloud. It doesn't really help us as domain investors. I can understand that, I guess, that it doesn't help, help out your performance by sharing information. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like just talk like super candid for a second. Do you think that the podcast, the DNW podcast that I did with Andrew Alleman helped me in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it couldn't. I was trying to think of a way. How could it? Well, it sharpens you up on one. I would say it's sort of like these podcasts. People, come back the next week, or they ask you questions, and you want to stay sharp on your business. So, does it help saying, "Hey, here's some tips on how I run a mile so fast"? Well, I don't know. You're giving out the tips to somebody else. Does it make your mile faster? Does it make you a better domain investor? I don't know. A small argument could be, yeah, that you try to outperform yourself. You try to improve yourself, and by putting it out there, saying it publicly. But Josh, no, I mean, it's hard to make an argument that it does benefit you. So,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, for
it's
me, why do I do it? I do it because I'm building a domain business. I'm trying to, build a following. I engage strongly with the community. I've been doing this for 10 years and talking about it publicly, and that's what enabled me to, build a big following where, DNWE had, 3,500 users, and we sold that to Ryan, and it was basically for that list. And and then I'm able to do it again with DNX, and now we're building a registrar, and then obviously we've got the personal brand. And so that, like, it's not a secret, that's why I do it. But from like a domain investing standpoint, a huge net negative, right? Huge net negative, because I'm giving away alpha that I've spent a lot of money on money and time trying to figure out, and then giving that away for free to people that follow me. And if they listen and implement in specific way that I mean, to be honest, I
I
give the
mean,
playbook. I mean, they will be successful, and they will take away names from the pool of names that I would be able to buy. I mean, Darcy knows this as well. Darcy, you know, is very is very in tune with what I do on a daily basis, or what I did last year, and he kind of followed suit, and lots of other guys followed suit. And so, it's yeah, it is what it is. I don't really mind, because I think that actually there is still, you're always discovering new opportunities, and most of the time, obviously I'm not telling people about it and then doing it. I'm doing it and then telling people about it. So I'm still getting like first pick of the litter, I would say. So, but yeah, it doesn't benefit anyone by talking about that. That's why guys like Tony and Elliot Silver and lots of other people in the industry don't talk about their sales, because they don't want more people competing on the names that they want to buy.
I
I
think
think
I
it's
think
a
that's I
little
think
bit.
that's I
Oh,
think
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to say, Josh, honestly, it's thought leadership, and the reward is priceless. Guys like Tony and Elliot Silva can't build a DNX. They can't build a DNWE and an exit. So you might look at it like, yeah, I don't benefit anything, but that goodwill that you build with the community, the karma, the relationships that you build with people, and the lives that you impact, to me, are priceless. Like, people that hoard information are shallow people. They have a scarcity mindset, and people that share information get rewarded. It's a spiritual thing. It's a business thing, but thought leadership is not something that's everyone is built for. Some people don't have the personality, and I think they all, even Tony and Elliot, they give back in ways that they're comfortable with. Right? You might be a little bit more in depth, but I don't think you should second guess why you do it, because it's in your hearts to do it, and that's why you do it.
Yeah, bingo. I
Yeah,
mean, I was gonna say, go ahead, Eric.
I think
But
it's
Josh, the karma is not getting a lot of credit here. You do the good stuff, the stuff does come back at you. And Eric, I'm gonna let you go. I would say it's like if somebody's coming to new to the running club, it's not gonna make you any slower. The pie is big enough. They certainly could take, get better than you, and then they stand on the podium. But I do think you're not getting enough credit to like what Ish was just saying, the goodwill. It comes right back to you. Go ahead, Eric.
I
I
think
mean,
the word
it's
used.
fun. I mean, it's fun building a. Sorry, Arif, I'll let you talk in a second. I'm just saying it is fun, obviously, building relationships with people, and we've got hundreds of people in our Discord, and I talk to that I wouldn't know if I didn't share, and they wouldn't know me, and you end up becoming friends. We have a fantasy soccer league which has, I don't know, 50, 60 people in it, right? And you talk with them, so there's certainly a social aspect, right, and a feel good aspect about it as well. There's no doubt about that, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The word you used, Todd, karma. I think it was a little bit different a few years ago, right? Because back when I was doing the Zooms and when we were all in Clubhouse, I think there was a different ratio of people that were sharing stuff. Back in those days, there was more people sharing, and even no matter what you shared, you would always end up getting more back in return, right? And Josh is probably the worst person speaking of this subject, because there's probably nobody more than Josh in 2026 who shares more pertinent and viable and strong information than he does, right? So for him to get that back, what he puts in, given that he's probably the person in the industry who gives the most in 2026, is going to be difficult for him to get in return, right? But for the rest of us who come on every now and then, I think it's we get back what we give. It's always a little different things. Like even I remember back in the days when I was doing the Zooms and everybody was up on with their cameras on and whatever it was, right? And some people were shy and never talked. And I go, look, you might not offer technical stuff with domains, might have not that knowledge, but you could still share knowledge and other things that we can learn from, right? With domains, it's like it's not just domains. You have to know about every industry pertinent to the domains you sell. And people coming into a room can come up and share that sort of information, right? So there was always that ability for people to get back what they gave. And I think with X, it's a little bit more polarized. Also in the day of AI, it's like, okay, well, like back in the days, I shared like 95% of my sales, right? As because it was given in more of a context of we discuss it, we learn from it, but it's not just the sale, it's a discussion, right? Whereas now with AI, people just scrape everything you've bought and then, build buying patterns based on that. And then, yes, you truly will lose out to domains you might have bought at a cheaper price and now have to pay more for it because more people are targeting the same domains as you because they were able to scrape your domains through AI or whatever else. So, and again, people don't share back as much. Like there's very few people compared to people in the room right now who actually come up and share their experiences, right? And I truly want to encourage everybody to come up because it's always what goes around comes around. And it's like that karma thing, especially in the past when we're on Clubhouse and Zoom, when it was easier for people to just unmute their mic instead of having to come up and sometimes technical issues with X. Well, back then we did get more from more people, and that breadth of different types of knowledge is something that we could benefit from. But it's it's a structure of X that makes it a little bit more difficult. But still, there's a few reasons I think things have changed.
Yeah, you see how easy it is to go 90 minutes. Josh, I posted, we got a new format. We go 90 minutes packed, and we've already went 100 minutes. so easy in here to, the time flies. We're going to try to stick to it in the future, just to go 90 minutes. That way, if we go a little over, fine. But I mean, there's it's people like it on replays to be able to have something to listen to, and have no fluff talk. We got a lot of great stuff on the outline for next week. You guys check it out, dnxshow.com. There was some things I wanted to talk about, and I hope Courtney can join us next week because he's working on Spandy, SPANDY.com. And this is a good example of when you're a domain investor and you've picked up some great stuff over the years and you've developed out some things, and they may not, you've spent a lot of money, you build a business, and then you decide, I'm done with this business. I bring it up because as Courtney was working on armpits and I had some of his product, great product, but he knew, this is not, he spent a lot of time and money and in building that, and now he's working on another project, SPANDY.com, and it's fantastic. You're a domain investor, but like you said, in your heart, your spirit, you're a developer, you're a builder. You want to build a business that can hopefully make more money than all your domain investing ever did. But anyway, I'd like to discuss what Courtney's doing. Hopefully he can join us next week. It's been a long time since we've caught up with Courtney. Like I said, he's working on SPANDY.com, so look out for that. And then we didn't even get a chance. There's so many things on the outline I wanted to go over, and that was anyway. Let's see, Josh, before you go, you sold school.co.uk. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we close down for today?
Yeah. I sold it for 100K on a 30-month LTO on GoDaddy.
I don't care how many months that is. That's still a lot of money per month. Jeez,
30, yeah,
100K.
5K a month is around what it is, I think.
Gosh, and I'm sure you go to bed thinking, man, I wish I had that .co.uk.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, man, oh man, that's great. I mean, that's motivating enough. I hope, I don't know how that's going to hurt you sharing that, but I hope it hurts you right in the liver. No,
I
that's a good one. So where was it? Was it on one of these platforms that we know, After Nick or something like that?
After Nick, indeed. Yeah, it was after Nick. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I talked about it on a Sherpa when I bought it, because it's my only .co.uk, and I was on a show with Drew and Yoni. If you ever want to find it, Drew, Yoni, and JT, and neither of them thought it was a good buy. How wrong they were.
Yeah, and I remember the show. And a lot of us do. We watch, Sherpa each week. I had on the outline. We'll probably touch on it next week. I don't know. I mean, Ryan, it gets so old because, the Sherpas come out on Thursday after this show. And then by that time, they're not stale, but, Ryan's appearance last week was just too much, too hilarious. And the whole title was Aim High. And of course, I like somebody who's like, aim high. He aimed higher than high than high. But then none of us are going anywhere. We're all going to be around. So when a lot of us talk about, I'm building this and I know I do it too. Listen, I've never built so many things in the last 10 years, this last couple years, from Pay Now, Domain Escrow, and these things aren't going away. These things, it's just, they're difficult and it takes a lot of time, but really, staying with them. And then dick.com, and I'm making, taking 12 hours off of there, because I'm always spending time with my, what. But anyway, it's, building businesses is not easy. Okay, about what Ryan's plan, is just so much. But I will say, somebody was talking about using Digital Junkyard. I really like Brad DataCube. He's been a savvy domain investor forever. He said he was over on Digital Junkyard, bought 3 names, was real unhappy. And it was like, hey, I bought these names and you guys say they're not available. Yeah, because I bought them at fucking good prices. They were, I think, 3letter.orgs, and he was upset. And then Ish, he calls me out on Saturday. Todd, why do you kiss Ryan's ass all the time? Because Ryan, when he buys something from me, pays reasonable and wires it right to me, and I get all tickled. So, I mean, I always, you have, and Josh, this, people that you've done business with, Ish, Arif, we all know that if you've done transactions with people, it was so smooth and professional, and you're on the receiving end of money. You can't help but think, hey, listen, I have nothing. I like doing business with Ryan, and I do like it, and I know, he was now this post recently that he's buying portfolios, which everybody's buying portfolios if you got something good. But he's saying, hey, if you've got offers from these guys like Josh, these guys like Drew, these guys out there, I'll outdo them, And my experience with him is at least when he makes an offer, he's had a, follows up on it. But any what do you think about the offer of buying portfolios? Is that just not anything new, Josh? I mean, he always, but it seems like he's more interested in it now. I guess I should ask Ryan, but what do you think about this public offer to bring me your portfolio and I'll give you a fair wholesale price for it? Think good for him, or what do you, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think that I don't think he would give you a great price personally. Um, wouldn't be but it's not just him. I wouldn't give you a good price either. He's not saying that. All this stuff about how he's making tons of money and he's made millions of dollars in domains. It's not from overpaying for a portfolios. I can tell you that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
No,
really kind
I
of as
mean, we're gonna do this
simple as
next.
that, really.
I'm gonna get a quote from him, and then I'll send it to you too, and say, hey, so I want to sell these 50 names, and they're not, I think they're okay. And some you'll think, okay, Todd, I'll give you $50 for that one, or $100 for that one, maybe the whole group together. I'm sure they'd be worth. I know you like a few of these 4-letter, Josh, a few of them, especially with AI in them. So, but the point is, I want people, and it's not that I want to sell a package of 50 for a wholesale price, but I want people to realize, here's a real offer I got on this, and I think it's worth substantially more, or obviously more, but here's what someone's willing to really pay for this. So I'm going to send Ryan 50 of them and say, what would you really give me for that today? And then I'm going to do the same, send them to you, Josh. I'll send them to a few other people too. Some will just say no, they don't want them. But I think there's,
Yeah, I'll probably just say no,
yeah, you
to be
just,
honest. But
because you just don't want to go so low
yeah,
to offend.
no, just because I have quite today compared to 2 years ago, I just have parameters that I follow, and I just don't want to stray away from them anymore. That's really what it comes
Well,
down
then
to.
just one name. How much would you give me right now for sxai.com? Just one 4-letter name with AI at the end. It's not great, but it's what it is. And you're going to be going to Essex later on this month. I know that's where you stay. As far as everything about, but
Yeah, I mean, like that's the type of name that I would have bought 2 years ago, but today I wouldn't even buy it unless I had a real purpose for wanting it.
yeah. So you wouldn't buy it for $200?
Yeah, I mean 200, sure, I'd buy it for 200.
Okay, so
I'd probably buy. I would probably,
you probably
you
pay up to
know,
600 or
n-
700. And
yeah, but yeah, exactly.
I want people to know, yeah, you can get rid of them, but and then Josh, no, I totally get it. And then if I said, yeah, but I want to package this with 50 other names, you're thinking, I'm still going to give you 600 for all those names. I only want this one. I mean, the point is, then basically it gets worse for portfolio sellers. You really need to come down. I know because I've done it. It's like, yeah, they want a few names. I pack in a lot, then I end up getting an average $166 per name. But fortunately, it was in the hundreds of names. The point is, I
See, like
like,
if you said to me, hey Josh, I have like bunch of bunch of keywordfinancial.com names, and they're all like top keywords like eclipsefinancial.com and sunsetfinancial.com and evergreenfinancial.com. Like, and if you told me that you had like 100 of those of that quality, I think that I would probably buy. I think I would probably pay pretty good sum compared to most other people, but because that's the kind of name that I want. But if you know you're selling like fourletter.coms, there are other people out there that are going to pay more than me.
Good point though, that the buyer, has a, you know, a, a, area or a niche that he likes. But I was thinking more like the Jim Carrey. So you say there's a chance. Oh, we got him, people. He's telling us what he's wanting. But all right, yeah, that's gonna do it for today. We are gonna start going 90 minutes. Summit, thanks. I'll see him next week. I guess he bailed already. But Josh, thanks for jumping in, and Arif and Ish, thanks for participating. Really appreciate it. Everybody have a great day wherever you're at. We'll see you next week here on the DNX Show. Take care.